I've had a confused relationship with bread. I look at bread, all bread, I think that's bad. This is cheating on my gut microbiome. Is that the truth? Is bread bad?
Most bread is bad. Most supermarket bread is ultra-processed sugar and contains many other chemicals you don't really want in you, makes you hungrier, and the general perception of the public is it's a healthy food. I found this myself when I started doing my glucose levels. Even brown breads were all over the place. There are some breads that I can eat in small amounts that are still healthy, things like rye breads, and if it's sourdough, that also improves it. But I think in general, we're eating far too much bread for most people. There might be some people who can support it, and that's why it's good to test your glucose responses to it. But most bread has too much sugar, not enough fiber, too many chemicals in it, and we should be looking to other things for our nutrition. Have it as a rare treat. Have it just when you go to a restaurant or whatever. But for most people, it's a real red flag for me.
The other red flag that shocked me was my relationship with white rice, because I'd grown up eating white rice and I thought white rice was a great thing to have after I'd been to the gym with some chicken. So whenever I saw white rice, I thought it was great. And then I looked on Zoe and I had a 15 out of 100 relationship with white rice. And I think my girlfriend had a 5 out of 100 relationship with white rice. So I no longer have white rice. I've swapped it out for, I think quinoa is usually what we have in the house now.
Well, nearly any grain is better than white rice. It's got more fiber, it's got more protein in it, it's got more nutrients in it. And rice is the most overrated food, I think, even more so than bread. Because, people think it's healthier than, having potatoes or pasta. They associate it with healthy things because sometimes the rest of the meal is actually quite good. Mm-hmm. And, vegetable curries or whatever it is, often quite healthy. But the rice itself is really just sugar. And there's no, have it as a rare treat, but so many other grains you can have instead, quinoas, barley, oats, or even putting in lentils or legumes, beans instead of that rice, just makes it so much healthier.
Your habits being so important, i.e. when you're eating and what you're eating and making sure that you carve out time to have your meals. Because I was telling you earlier, I think before we started recording, that I'm in a bit of a pattern at the moment of eating my first meal of the day at like 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. because if I'm recording podcasts or I'm doing something in the media or on TV, I don't like to eat before then. What is an example of great food habits? I want to know what your food habits are on a perfect day. Say, this was your 10 out of 10 day. When would you eat? How many meals would you eat? And what times would and wouldn't you eat?
Okay, so like you, I have very busy days where sometimes it goes out the window. And I think we've got to realize that you've got to try and this sort of 80-20 ideal. You're trying to stick to something 80% of the time, knowing that 20%, it's out of your control, don't worry about it. And if you do that, you can do that sustainably for decades, right? It's the people who are obsessed and say, I mustn't break it. And if you've broken it one day, okay, end of my brilliant experiment. That's daft. So if I'm at home, for example, working at home, I'm in control of things. I will not eat anything before 11 o'clock. I will have a black coffee because I know that wakes me up and I like it and it's also good for me. But I won't have anything else until 11 o'clock. I'll go down and I fix myself my bowl of full-fat yogurt, and I'd put my diversity jar sprinkled in there, and I'd see what else is in the fridge. So I might have some berries if they're around at the moment, plenty of seasonal berries. Might get some from the freezer if we're in the we're in March or something. There's no fresh berries, or I might just chop up an apple and put it in there. I'm getting my protein. I'm getting fat. I'm not feeling hungry and having a dip in energy in the middle of the day that I would probably have if I hadn't eaten anything.
You said coffee. I have my coffee because I know it's good for me. Last time we spoke, you were kind of on the fence about coffee. You had 2 trains of thought about whether it's good for us or not. You're now saying you think it's good for us.
Yeah, well, I must have given the wrong impression to you, but okay. Coffee is definitely a health food.
Interesting.
Okay. There are some people who don't tolerate it very well. They don't tolerate the caffeine, a few % of people. But even if you have decaf coffee, it's decent quality because there's different ways of taking the caffeine out. All the studies are now showing consistently that you will have less heart disease and you'll live longer if you drink coffee and are having sort of between 1 and 4 cups of coffee a day. That seems to be the sweet spot. A bit more than that, you've probably got some problem, that coffee is actually a fermented plant. So people don't think of it that way. They think, oh, it just comes in a jar, I don't need to worry about it. But actually, it comes off a tree, you get this pod, this bean, you take it off, you break it up, it then gets fermented on the floor of usually, wherever it is in Africa or Asia, where it is, and it's humid, the microbes are working on it, breaking it down, then you go and dry it and roast it, and that ends up being the coffee we have. So the microbes are playing a role in that. It's also a source of fiber. So 3 cups of coffee gives you around 5 grams of fiber, which is about a quarter of your the average UK or US amount. So, it's not the main source of fiber, but it all helps. And in the US, it's often the main source of fiber that they get. So polyphenols, the fiber, also for many people, it gets them awake and alert, has that effect of stopping tiredness. So if you're careful with it, you don't overdose on it, and it doesn't give you heart fluctuations, it's going to be actually beneficial for you long term. So this is a great example of a food that we've totally changed our minds on over the years. My first research paper I ever wrote was that coffee causes cancer. Okay, so when I was actually a medical student, and I was very proud of my paper, and this was great. And it was based on very poor studies done in the 1980s, and it was complete rubbish. So I'm very happy to go and correct that mistake and tell people that, you should much better to drink coffee than, say, orange juice. And orange juice tends to be in the health section, and coffee definitely in the sort of recreational section. And they really should be changed over. Most orange juice we have is ultra-processed, high sugar, very bad for most people. Coffee is good for the vast majority of people.
What else have you been wrong about? What else have you changed your mind about over the last couple of years because of the research that you now have, the data you now have access to and the research that you've done?
Well, I was keen to avoid fats for a long time. I cut back on cheese because I thought that's high in saturated fats. That can't be good for you. I would have bought low-fat products before. And so that most doctors were indoctrinated with that. And many doctors are still in that mindset that fat is bad and carbs and starch are good. Drinking lots of water was good for you. And I now, having researched it for the book, know there's no hard data that you should be drinking 8 glasses of water, for example, a day, which is what most of the recommended government sites tell you. And obviously the drinks industry is very keen to support that because, the big companies like the Cokes, the Pepsis have moved into the water business, and they're trying to sell everyone plastic bottled water, which is terrible for the planet. The idea that we're all deprived of hydration and having all kinds of problems with it is really made up. There's no hard evidence at all. And if you look at doctors who work on marathons, they see that far more people die or have health problems from overhydrating in the marathon race than dehydrating. So the human body is really good at some things. You think about our ancestors, they kind of knew when you were thirsty, right? It's like, hang on, this is quite a, and the idea that, we've got no idea if we're thirsty or not. We need to be eating, have a stopwatch to tell us to drink every hour on the hour is obviously nonsense when you think about it.
That's so true. For my birthday just gone, someone brought me this massive, what's the way to describe it? Barrel water bottle. and it has like 8 liters marked on the side of it. And they said to me when they gave it to me, you need to drink that every day. And so the idea was that I put it on my desk as a reminder that I need to drink that whole barrel before I finish work.
No, I mean, you just think about it. Well, you know, we've been evolving for millions of years, and, you know, you can't live long without water. So clearly we've got a pretty good mechanism we've inherited to tell us when we need to drink water and when we don't. And I just think that's, again, marketing concept. All the soft drink, all this rehydration, these electrolytes, all this stuff, it's largely nonsense. And it's just, again, like the protein marketing idea is that, and we're very susceptible to it because we like a quick fix and there'll be a few people that say, I feel better when I drink lots of water. Sure, but the idea that we're so out of control that, someone needs to bring us water every hour is madness. And that there isn't this variation.
We got up to your lunch. So we did your breakfast. Sounded nice. Your lunch. What time do you typically eat lunch and what do you typically have on a 10 out of 10 day where everything's going to plan?
I mean, it all varies now. I think I don't want to give the idea I'm always having the same lunch because I do try and vary it. But if I'm on my own working, I'm not with friends or whatever, it would be a fairly quick affair and it would probably be a salad. And I would get a lettuce or a grated cabbage. I would throw whatever I have in the fridge in there, and I would add some protein to it. So I would add some beans. I always keep cans of beans around. They cost nothing. They're a huge source of fiber and protein. Tip those in. There might be lentils. They might be chickpeas. Might be standard mixed beans. And I'd put them in. If I had some cheese, I might chop that up. Might put a bit of mozzarella in there. Olive oil, balsamic vinegar. That'd be it. And if I'd had some sauerkraut or something, I might have that on the side. A bit of ferment. And I've increasingly recently, since I've been doing more research on this, I might make my salad dressing actually with some fermented milk, some kefir. And you just mix up the oil and vinegar and you just, at the last minute, add in your ferment. So you're actually getting probiotics added to that. That if I'm on my own and I'm in a hurry, that's probably what, it's reasonable. But it would vary depending on what I was taking, what fruits, what vegetables, and I would have fruit afterwards.
What kind of fruit do you like? I noticed on my Zoe app that bananas rank incredibly low for me. I think my ranking on a banana out of 100 is 50. Now, I've been eating bananas like a monkey. I've always thought bananas were just fantastic. So I thought unlimited bananas were a great idea until I saw the Zoe app and it said my score is 50 out of 100. Now I've eased up on the bananas and I'm having much more berries because I do really well for red berries in particular. In fact, the order that the Zoe app had fruits in is raspberries were number 1, cherries were number 2, strawberries were 3rd, then pears, then peaches, then apples, then kiwis, then blueberries, then grapes, and then bananas were like 10th, 50 out of 100.
Well, I scored even worse than you, you'd be pleased to know.
Oh, really?
So, I used to eat lots of bananas, and it was a thing you just put in your backpack, comes in its own packaging, you can have it when you want. I thought, this is super healthy. Because I've seen, Roger Federer eat lots of bananas, he seemed pretty fit. And that's why we associated with the marketing thing, lots of potassium, must be good for us. Really lots of sugar, and they're not great for us. My score was about 30 or something. So I still have them occasionally because I enjoy them occasionally, but I don't have them every day like I used to. So I now have swapped them out for pears. We have some great pears in this country, and they're always good. Apples, and again, I'll have my berries if I've got them. So and kiwi fruits. I had to also give up grapes. I used to eat lots of grapes, and I used to love them, but get a huge sugar spike with grapes, which I know then would make me hungrier for the rest of the day. So, and I have them as a treat. You might have some grapes once a month. That's still fine. So I think we should never say, I'll never have those again. It's just like, what's your staple? What do you have most of the time? Should you be swapping that for something just as tasty or nice or a mixture of things? But get out of that rut just because someone told you that, banana's good, has potassium in it and make you play tennis better. It's that kind of mindset that we really need to change. And
I guess it depends what else is on the plate. I remember Frederica, who's the head of nutrition at Zoe, her telling me that the plate itself has its overall score. So if I had, maybe something that wasn't so good in isolation, but with a couple of other things that are really high ranking in terms of health and gut microbiome, then the overall score comes up. And it's really the average of the whole plate.
Yeah, it's exactly. The idea is we don't want to demonize one little thing. So you might be obsessed with mayonnaise, for example, and I'd say to you, well, you can have a small amount of mayonnaise if it's going to make you eat a salad. And if that salad is high fiber, nutritious, it's got plenty of good things in it, herbs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or, a tiny bit of ketchup or whatever. I'd still be saying, yeah, you can try something else instead of those, but don't get hung up about it. And I think it's absolutely true that, nutrition has gone into this idea of this is wrong, this gives you cancer, this is bad. And meat is a great example of that debate. People ask me, are you for meat? Are you against meat? And I've sort of changed. I flipped on this as the evidence has changed. I'm definitely against processed meats, ultra processed meats, which are low quality stuff put together in ready meals, etc. You'd be much better off just having mushrooms or beans instead of that mixed with it, a vegetarian version of it. But real high quality meat in small amounts, nothing really wrong with it, as long as you have enough space on the rest of the plate to make up for it.